So, last 2 days of notes, we have been studying different types of sampling techniques. How do we collect a sample to help us describe our population? Some of those techniques, not so good, like convenience sampling, voluntary response sampling, not the greatest samples. Then we talk about, simple random samples, or a stratified random sample, or clustering. Those are three techniques that are at least a little bit better. They're not perfect, but they're at least better techniques in collecting a sample. What we're going to start off today with is I'm going to ask you a simple question that would be like a question on a survey that I want you to answer to the best of your ability. That's what that little sheet of paper I handed to you is all about. It's going to be very simple. Here are your directions. After you write your answer down, I'm going to give you about 1 minute to do so. I want you in your groups then to put all the answers together. You can mix them up. Do not put your name on this little piece of paper. I don't want your name on this little piece of paper. No need to put it on there. In fact, when I collect them, I will have a student read all the answers. Really, you crumpled up your little piece of paper? Oh, thank goodness. Okay. I was worried there for you. Anyway, here is your question. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. It's a very simple question. I want you to write down in pounds how much you think I weigh. I will walk around the room and even turn around and let you look at me. I would like you to simply write down how much you think I weigh in pounds. That's simple. Alright, so we've gathered up your answers. Avi is going to kindly read them and I'm going to write them on the board because I just want to see what answers we actually collect. This would be like a survey. Here's our survey results. Let's see what happens to our results. Avi.
Alright, 233.
Okay.
223.
Yeah.
210.
Yeah.
230.
Yeah.
300.
Yeah.
300.
Yeah.
325.
Okay.
230.
Yeah.
262 and a half.
Okay.
263.
Okay.
280.
Yeah.
285.
Yeah.
241.
Yeah.
320.
Okay.
265.
Yeah.
263.
Yeah.
285.
Yeah.
280.
Yeah.
200.
Yeah.
230.
Yeah.
220.
Yeah.
195.
Yeah.
240.
Yeah.
211, I think this was.
Okay.
253.
Yeah.
260.
Yeah.
228.
Yeah.
225.
Yeah.
249.
Yeah.
285.
Yeah.
And 307.
307. All right. So, if we were to take a look at this distribution, I'm going to just do kind of a very, really short, quick, let's group the data kind of in some weight ranges. So if I look at, say, the weight, let's go less than 200, because we actually had one here. 195, we had one. How about between 200 and 230? Let's see how many we had here. 1, 2, 3, 4,
That's good.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Did I miss one? Oh, that's 233. Now I lost my count. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10. So 231 to 260. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We had 6 there. 260 to 290. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
This one applied.
9. Thank you. Good.
You're welcome.
Did I miss another one too?
No.
261 to 290.
Yeah, thank you. And then 290 to 320.
91.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So all of them fell in there. All right. So what do you want to know what the real weight is? Okay, last time I weighed myself.
325. No, Bart. 325 is
Oh,
above.
I had a 325. Thank you. So this should be 4 and 1. So I'm just going to put it as 325. Last time I weighed myself down in the nurse's office was 297. What do you notice about the vast majority of these weights?
They're below that.
They're way below. Okay.
Or a bit flat.
There were a few that were close. Say within 10 pounds. Was anyone within 10 pounds? Do we have, the 300s were. So the two people that had 300s, did I have a 305?
Yeah, 307.
307, so that was, so 3 of you. Do we have anybody at like 287 or in that range? 285 is pretty close. Okay. So we had a 285. Actually, we had 2 of them, didn't we? Yeah, so okay. I will admit, this class has done probably one of the best jobs at getting close to it. But you still kind of see that we're missing, that most people are missing my weight. Why do you think that is? Thank you, Avi, by the way, for reading. Why do you think in the world, why would we be missing and be missing, especially on the low side? Okay, what's the bias?
You don't want to be
You don't want to
mean.
be mean.
Yeah.
What's being mean?
Let's just cheat.
Okay.
Weight.
Okay. Okay, so saying that I'm overweight when in fact I'm actually not. So I could be offended by that. Do you think there's a bias in this country towards people's weight?
Yeah.
Do you think we're weight sensitive?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's why I picked this topic. Right? Part of it is because I can always have fun because I can always go, look at me, thin me, fat me, thin me, fat me over the years. Something that I've had a fun battle with all my life. Just mainly because I like food. So, and really good greasy food. Anyway, donuts, chicken wings, you name it. I can almost eat it. But, getting back to this, okay, I'm just kind of curious. How many of you, when I asked that question, went, oh my God, do I have to do this? Okay. All right. I got about a third to half of you at least telling me that. That's good. You're being asked a question that you didn't really want to respond to. I'm curious, did you have any blank pieces of paper? Did anyone not answer? Bobby, when you were reading the numbers, sorry, put you on the spot there, because you couldn't see me point to you, so I get it, I understand. So, everybody at least answered, okay? Did any of you think about just leaving it blank and not wanting to do it? Or did you feel intimidated by me to answer? Right. So at least up here, we didn't get anyone choosing not to respond. Okay? We did get any numbers that were funny or ridiculous. Okay? No, you guys actually, even 195, thank you, whoever said 195. That would be like my ideal dream weight. But, the thing is, like in my 3rd hour class when we did this, somebody actually wrote down on the piece of paper something to the extent of like 3.25 times 10 to the 17th power. Okay? So, which is just physically not possible. Okay.
About 14.
Yeah, somebody also guessed in the 400-pound range, which is, I suppose, possible for me, but it was extremely high. I think they were trying to be funny. What we're trying to drive at here with what we just did as just a small activity, okay, is to show you that you can have bias in a survey when you collect data, even though you intend not to, okay? And what bias is, as it says up here in your notes, is a systematic favoritism towards an outcome. Did I lead you to answer low? Did I say, oh, you know, I've been working out and I've been trying to lose weight. Hey, try to guess how much I weigh now. Okay? That might lead you to answer lower weights. Okay? But this has an unintended bias to it, even though I tried to make the question, you know, ask you the question in a very simple form. I tried to make sure you didn't put your names on it. I told you ahead of time not to. I told you to put them together so that you try to feel comfortable making a good guess. And I actually had someone else read them. So I'm doing all these things that would be good quality sampling techniques. But everything I did with the sampling, I still got a systematic error that I couldn't have necessarily controlled. I'm talking about something that's a weight-sensitive issue. Also, for some people, guessing someone's weight might be difficult to do. You're not used to ever doing something like that. Okay? So what we're going to focus on here today is what we call sampling errors versus non-sampling errors. And we're going to focus around this word bias. Our answers systematically went to the low side. Sometimes when you collect and do surveys, you're going to get answers that are going to be way too high, results that are going to be way too high or way too low because of something that you did. It might be done by the way you collected the sample. It might be done because of other issues, but not related directly to collecting the sample. So, the first thing that we want to talk about is this concept of a sampling error. Sampling error is when you actually make a mistake that is directly involving how you collected the sample. Okay? So the way you chose your sample is the direct cause of the bias. Okay? There are what we call two really main kinds of sampling errors. The first one is something that we can't necessarily control. And this is what makes a simple random sample not always the greatest. Okay? The first one is called a random sample error. For instance, in this class, roughly speaking, we have close to the same number of boys and girls. I think we have a few more boys in this class than we do girls. Okay? So, one of the things I could do is take a simple random sample from this class. Say if I'm taking a simple random sample of 6 students. Okay? But gender is going to be an important factor, right, for my sample. I would get different results from boys and girls. If I collect a random sample and I get all boys or all girls, which is possible and can happen in a random sample, they all have an equally likely chance of being chosen, we have what's called a random sample bias. It happens in random samples. Okay? So that's where you're collecting that simple random sample. and you get a sample that would not be considered random. Think about it like this. Is flipping a fair coin something that you would consider, equal likely to happen? Right? So if I decided to flip a coin to decide if I select a boy or a girl, if I flip the coin 10 times and I get 10 heads in a row, would you think that is random? Probably not, but technically it is one of the outcomes that can happen. Okay? So if that outcome actually does happen, we don't believe it's random, but that's what we consider kind of like a random sampling error. Okay? All right, so basically this example is talking about just exactly what I was talking about with the genders. The second one is undercoverage. Think about the word undercoverage. You're trying to cover everybody. Undercoverage means you're missing. You're missing parts of it. You didn't cover everything. So you're missing a group. Okay? And that's what it says here. When a segment of the population is left out of the process. Many times it's done unintentionally, or you don't realize that you're actually doing it. I think of a lot of times when you conduct a survey and gather information, when you do that, for instance here at Hopkins High School, sometimes the Royal Page will put in surveys in the newspaper or will collect some information about students. And sometimes they'll go to a specific lunch period to collect that information. The problem with that is the only people that could respond to it was the people that were at first lunch. Okay? And the reason why they did it was because that was the only lunch they could be at. I understand why they do it. But they leave out a segment of the population. Okay? If I think about, a simple survey, if I was asking a question, how many of you use a calculator in one of your current classes? Okay. Well, if I sample it during first lunch versus third lunch, math eats third lunch, do you think the results are going to be vastly different? Hugely different. Okay? So when you leave out a segment of the population, we call that undercoverage. And that happens because of how you're sampling. Now the next type of errors are called non-sampling errors. They still cause bias, but they're not due directly to how you're sampling. They're due to other things of how you set up the sample, okay, or how you ask things and stuff like that, as you'll see. Things that you can or cannot necessarily control, okay? The first one is non-response. Okay. Unfortunately, we did not have anyone choose not to respond in either of my classes today. I was hoping for that, but okay, this is where someone chooses not to respond for some various reason. Okay. So when you're doing a mailing survey or online survey or all those ones, they have a large non-sampling error because a lot of people choose not to respond. Telephone surveys. How many of you still have home phones and get calls from solicitors all the time or surveys? Okay, I see a good half of you. We actually finally got rid of our home phone. We're part of that reason. Okay? How many of you actually answer them? How many of you say no thanks and just hang up the phone? Or just go, hi mom, see ya.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. It depends on what it is sometimes. Okay? But many people choose not to respond. Okay? So that's one of them. So the next one is what you guys got to experience a little bit. And that's a response bias. Incorrect answers by respondents, whether intentional or unintentional. in our class, no one intended to be funny, which was just fine by me. Third hour, I had that person that decided to be funny and make me super, super heavy. Okay? Probably was. Okay? But response bias happens because people don't want to admit to their response in some way, shape, or form. Whether they're embarrassed, whether they're worried about what the other person's going to think, they feel pressure, whatever it is. They want to intentionally deceive the person doing the survey. Could be a reason. Just to give you another response bias, I like always talking about this one. Here's another simple question I could have asked you on this, and I can ask right now as a class, but I know there wasn't as much of a bias, at least in my third block, because I know times are changing a little bit. But how many of you, by a show of hands, have ever cried during a movie? Okay? So, but notice how, thank you very much, Riley. Many of you were raising your hand, but I want to say thank you, Riley, because when he raised his hand, he says, no shame. Okay? And that's kind of the bias. A lot of the guys in the class raised their hand. My guess is a few of you might have been afraid to raise your hand because you didn't want to admit amongst your friends that, oh my goodness, I cried because Bambi's mom died. Okay? Or Old Yeller was killed at the end of the movie. Okay? Or Marley and Me. Okay, yes, you had to bring up, that was number 2. I forgot about that movie for me. Okay? I always like to share. I'm a proud man, but you know what? The first movie that, other than probably when I was a little kid that I don't recall crying, but the first movie that I can remember ever actually crying to when I was an adult was when I saw the movie Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, yeah, that was sad.
Okay? I'll just go spoiler alert right now because I know maybe a couple of you haven't seen it. But for me personally, when I saw Saving Private Ryan, I was like, wow, this is a great movie. And it didn't get me to cry until the very end of that movie. For those of you who have seen it, if you remember when he's an old man and he's at the Normandy beaches at the cemetery and he's at the captain's, Tom Hanks' character, I forget Captain whatever his name was, but he's at his gravestone and he breaks down and then he looks up to his wife and he says, tell me I've been a good man, tell me I've lived a good life. I started breaking down there because I at least had the personal experience of actually going to that cemetery. I was lucky enough with Mr. Rexroth to tag along with him to England to visit his parents, and we went over to the Normandy beaches of France. He's a history teacher. I love history. He and I have gone to college together. We've taken a history class together, as a matter of fact. Really good friends, long time, have been. But I remember being at that cemetery. And if you ever see that movie again, you'll see the cemetery and you'll see it. And it's the actual cemetery. And it is absolutely beautiful. It is gorgeous. And for me personally, it was probably the most humbling experience in my life. Anytime I feel, like I deserve things or egotistical or everything, I think about that cemetery and the sacrifices that those people made for our country. Because when you go to that gravesite, to that cemetery, and you actually can walk on the grass, which is pristine, beautiful, green grass, not a single weed in that grass. It is kept immaculate. But you are allowed to go and walk amongst the gravestones. And you have these beautiful white marble crosses. And on about 1 in every 5 crosses, every 4 to 5, you'll read here captain, private, corporal. Then all of a sudden you see one that says, here lies a comrade in arms, only known to God. And to that still stays in my mind, and that's almost word for word what it says. Here lies basically an unknown soldier, someone who sacrificed their life, but we don't know who they are. And it's like every 4th to 5th one is that. And that's so many people died taking those beaches, and you look across the ocean, and it's so beautiful. But yet you see the hillsides that they had to come up. And not too far away is a place called Point de Hawk, which is a place where they actually had to climb up cliffs, and they're getting shot at and bombarded with bullets and bombs and everything. It's just very humbling. So anyway, I always just share that with you. I don't know why, but it gets back to here on how, sometimes some boys, not necessarily girls, and I know I'm stereotyping a little bit, will not admit amongst their peers that they will cry at a movie. All right, our last one is wording of the question. Okay? I really was trying to be very particular with the words I choose when I ask a question. Because even the question I asked you about the movie, in my 3rd block class, one of my students said, Mr. Bartz, I didn't know if you were talking about a movie theater or at home. So I didn't know exactly how to answer even that question. So the wording of the question can cause bias. Most of the time it's a little more obvious in that they'll use words that are very confusing, or they love to do leading questions. They'll give you like a persuasive, as I will say, something like a persuasive fact that will lead you to answer yes or no, or the way they want you to hopefully answer their question. Okay? Those happen all the time. If I were to ask a question, after all the recent crimes that you've been seeing on TV with gun violence, do you think we should ban guns? I'm guessing if I ask it that way, more people are going to say yes than no than if I were to say, hey, it's, the Second Amendment gives us the right to bear arms. Okay? Do you think it's right or wrong for us to ban guns? More people are probably going to say, wait a minute, that's my constitutional right. I don't want to lose that. So they're going to say, no, I don't want you to ban guns. So you can ask a leading question 2 different ways and get totally 2 different results to an answer that you might want. So wording of the question becomes, a lot of times, a huge challenge. All right, let's flip to the next page because I'm going to give you some more examples of bias, specifically of these last 4 that we've just talked about. Okay? So let's flip and take a look at how we would ask questions dealing with specifically bias. So in these examples it says this: in each of the following sample designs, describe how the design of the study leads to bias. Specifically, tell me which one it is. Make sure to include the direction of the bias, meaning, does it underestimate or overestimate the true population? So tell me, did our result overestimate it? Did we get a higher proportion than what we probably should have? Or did it underestimate it? Okay? Did we get a proportion really small and it should have been bigger? So in the first one here, it says, in a survey about how often people go out to eat, interview, and it really should say interviewers, called people at home during the hours of 5 to 7 p.m. Only 15% of the people surveyed stated they go out to eat at least twice a week. So of the bias, says, which one does this fall under? Well, let's do it this way. What seems to be the mistake or the bias that's happening here? Yeah, they're calling during the times people go out to dinner. So if I go out to dinner am I going to be included in the sample? No, I'm going to be left out. So which is the one that leaves me out? Under coverage. Because I'm being left out. I'm not being covered by the survey. Non-response is where you purposely choose not to respond. Or I should say necessarily purposely or unintentionally choose not to
It
respond.
just says it means also if you keep the contact.
Well, this one you can't be contacted. It says cannot be contacted under.
Yeah.
You got me curious. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Can't be contact. But that's like,
No, I'm going to just take out the words can't be contacted so I don't confuse you. Because what it really
it just means like.
it really means choosing not to be contacted.
Like if they did call you.
They're calling you and you're choosing not to answer the phone. They send you an internet email, they've contacted you, but you're choosing not to respond to it. So I want to kind of clarify that. Thank you for pointing that out. So, getting back to here, this would definitely be under coverage. This, we only got 15 people to say yes. Well, that's because all the people that are out to eat are gone. So our result is probably much lower than what we would expect because we're leaving out all those people that are out to eat. So we would say this is an example of undercoverage bias. Okay? It will underestimate the actual population proportion. Why? Well, those who go out to eat twice a week are mostly not home when they call. So this group is being left out of the sampling process altogether. I'll give you a minute or two to write that down. All right, the second one says a university sends out a survey to find out how alumni felt about the usefulness of their education. The results were overwhelmingly positive. 83% of those who responded felt their education was useful. Which one is this? They sent the mailing to all the alumni.
Non-response,
Okay. Non-response. Why?
because if someone felt their education was useful, they could probably be more likely to respond and
That-
say thank you, I could find my education useful.
Okay. And those who did probably would do what with it?
Throw it away.
Throw it away. Exactly. Excellent. Okay. So we would definitely say non-response. Mailing surveys have a big non-response bias. Okay. This one would definitely overestimate, as Becca was saying, people who had a positive experience are more likely to respond. They feel good about the college, they want to say thank you. Those that did have a good experience probably want to have nothing to do with the school. It would be like, why are you still sending me stuff? Most of the time they're asking for money. I think I've shared this with you a little bit before, but I know that if St. Olaf College sends me stuff, a lot of times I will respond to it because my experience was positive. I got my master's degree from University of St. Mary's in Winona. It was a good school, but when I did my master's, I went to the campus one time. So I don't have like a personal connection to it. So when they send me stuff, or ask me things, I usually don't do much with it unless if it's like the book about the college, then I'll kind of flip through and see what's going on. But other than that, usually don't do much with it. But St. Olaf College, they always send me the yearly album. I'm always flipping through that, seeing what's going on at college life down there. It's really nice because they'll give you a list of who's gotten married over the years and who's had babies and who's died, unfortunately. So I'm always looking at to see from my graduating class, hey, who got married, who's had a baby, and unfortunately sometimes who's passed away. Luckily, when the list of the deaths in there, it's still usually from like the 40s and 50s, occasional 60s, 70s, but there's always like one from the 90s and one from the 2000s, which is always kind of sad. Please let me know if I'm going too fast. Am I okay to go on the next one? I do see a couple pencils going, so trying to take some of the advice of the classes, just give you enough time. This one's one of my favorites. I just laugh and chuckle at this one. Yes, Charlie?
This be respond because they don't want to send the teachers?
Yep.
Is it just called response?
Response bias. Alright, so number 3, it says, at the end of the final exam, a professor asks a student a question concerning his teaching ability. 93% of his students wrote that he was an excellent teacher. As Charlie was just saying, would this be a response bias? Absolutely. Are people going to not necessarily tell the truth on this? Why would you not, if you thought the teacher was poor, why would you not say that? What would you be worried about?
Him failing you.
Him failing you.
Oh, they
Okay?
didn't do a good job.
Okay? So, we would be worried that he would criticize you because, or he would fail you just because you didn't think he was a good teacher. Okay? Likewise, when I was asking you about my weight, okay, you were doing a response bias. You were worried, some of you might have been worried about your answers, even though I was trying to take away that worry. Still, you're worried that you might offend me. Oh my goodness, what is Mr. Barnes going to think if I put a heavier weight and he might think I call him fat. And he's not going to like me for the rest of the term. Okay? I get that. I understand why that happens. So we call that our response bias. With him attaching this to the final exam, as questions on the final exam, to me, makes it a huge response bias. I'm taking my final exam and I actually have to answer questions on this exam. My name's on it. Are you kidding me? I don't want you, some people want to be able to express their opinions without their names being attached to it. Right? Just to let you know, for instance, at St. Olaf College, when I was there, one of the things that we were actually asked to do was to actually rate our professors at the end of each semester. And it would happen on final exam day. However, the way they got around this part of it is the professor would actually come in with the surveys and in an envelope and say, by the way, here's the surveys that you have to do. Most of us already knew about it. Usually, you only would have to explain it to the freshmen at the beginning of the semester or during first semester to those students. But it's like, here's the thing. Who's going to take them to the dean of students for us? So there would be a student who would be in charge of actually taking the survey results to the dean of students. So someone would be like, yeah, I'll take them because I'm going to go to lunch at the student union, which is right next door. I'll drop them off. Okay. Likewise, what was unique, at least at St. Olaf College, and some colleges probably still do this. I'm assuming St. Olaf still does it. It's an assumption still because I don't know for sure. But St. Olaf, when I was there, had an honor code. Meaning this, every time a professor gave an in-class exam, he would walk into the class at the beginning of the class and say, all right, here are the exams, here are the blue books, I'll be in my office if you have any questions. And he'd walk right back out the door. Some of them would even be kind of cute. A lot of them would like write up on the board the word pledge, but some of them would bring a can of pledge and set it on the desk. An actual can of dusting that said the pledge, the name brand. Because at St. Olaf College, we had an honor pledge. Meaning every exam, boom, yeah, thanks, Jay. Because every time we took an exam at St. Olaf College, when you finished your exam, you would actually sign on a signature line and a statement that would say, I've neither given nor seen or committed any dishonest work on this examination. Okay? So you would sign that if that was true. Okay? If it wasn't true, then you're asked to leave that blank. You still turn in your test and just be blank. If you forgot to sign it, or you didn't sign it, probably within 1 to 2 hours after you completing your exam, you would get a call. I forgot to sign it one time. And just completely spaced it, because usually I do my test and then sign it at the end, because obviously I don't want to sign it until I'm done with my exam. Forgot to sign it. I got a call within like 2 hours, and it was a student on it because we had an honor board made up of students and administrators, right, that would review all the cases of suspected cheating. So what would happen is, the first question they asked me is, did you see anything or do anything, or did you forget to sign the pledge? I'm like, I forgot to sign the pledge, I'm sorry. My apologies, yeah, everything was A-okay in class. Okay, thank you very much, have a good day. But if I were to actually have seen anything, then we'd have a discussion about it. And I would have to go amongst the honor board and report what I'd see. They'd probably pull other people in the class to see if anything else happened. If 2 or 3 people didn't sign the pledge, okay, you could build a case against someone, and the student, if they actually did cheat and were caught cheating, would be expelled. What's that? Yes, you could. And did some students probably do that? Yes. Okay. Hey, I'm recording a video in here. Thank you. Anyway, so yes, could people lie and cheat on exams at St. Olaf College? Sure. And I even remember our student newspaper talking about that, right? But at the same time, I can at least proudly say that I never cheated on any exam. I was proud to sign that pledge. I thought the college put onto me the idea of integrity. And I am a firm believer. I preach to my swimmers, never compromise your integrity. give me everything that you got. Okay? Don't sell yourself short. Okay? I know Evan's in here, he's like going, yeah. Yeah. Okay? But I get that from the school. Okay? That's one of the big things that St. Olaf taught me. Okay? I'm not gonna, give up my integrity over something as simple as because I didn't study so well on the test, so I'm gonna cheat. Okay? Because it'll come back and bite me in some way, shape, or form later on in life. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but sometime in life it will. Alright, sorry, another side topic. What a surprise. Alright, the last one. Ooh, I still have the words underlined here, but that's okay. So number 4 says, in a survey about fast food restaurants, students were asked whether they agreed or disagreed with the following statement. Due to the inveterate and intransient behavior of a segment of the school population, students should not be allowed on the premises of eating establishments after 7 p.m. 72% of the student body agreed with this statement. Okay, so this one is definitely the wording of the question. It's doing two things here. It's definitely using words that we might not know the definition to, like inveterate and intransient, which sound bad, and they are. But not only that, they're saying due to that, which makes you think, yeah, we have some bad students. So because of that, yeah, I agree with you. It's a leading question wanting you to answer yes. And here students are actually answering yes to not be allowed to be at eating establishments after 7 p.m. Which seems a little ridiculous that people would even students would say yes to that. Okay? But again, the question is so leading, okay, that people got to focus at, oh yeah. I'll leave this up.